Let's start.
We ready? We're live? You ready to go? All right. So the third class, we'll try and keep it short, particularly if you listen to Yeshala's class. I know it's been a lot of class time today. So this class is on how to pick a teacher. And it's critical, right? It's way more important than picking. If you're picking a teacher for a spiritual purpose like this, it's way more important than picking a teacher for like a math class, right? Like calculus. If you learn it wrong, you can always go back and get another teacher to figure it out. But for something spiritual, these ideas are pretty subtle, right? Like emptiness and what ethics are, and reaching enlightenment and Buddhahood. These are difficult subjects, right? And the seeds that you plant could project you into another lifetime that could go off for thousands of years. And so it's really critical that you pick a good teacher, pick an appropriate teacher. And they say that you could take 12 years to investigate a teacher before you really commit to one. And remember, I don't think that's really an exaggeration. It's hard, right? These subjects like emptiness are subtle and difficult, and I mean, frankly, I've traveled around the nation. I've been to lots of different teachers at universities, at centers, famous teachers, teachers who were Tibetan, teachers who weren't Tibetan. A lot of people are teaching a lot of things that are just flat out wrong. And I think they're well-intentioned, but they don't really know what they're doing. And it's difficult to tell, right? Some of them were famous and had big centers and, dressed appropriately and, rang the bell at all the right times. And it's hard to tell. Particularly if you don't have anything to compare it to, right? So my personal experience is that this lineage is authentic. That Ken Rinpoche and Geshe Michael, in particular, the two teachers that I've known, were completely, thoroughly well qualified, absolutely. And I've been extremely grateful that I've had the chance to study with them and to discover them. It took quite a bit. I'll tell this story. When I was first looking for a teacher, I went around Chicago, was going to various different centers, and I knew I'd read books. I had some exposure to other teachers, but going around Chicago, big city, right? At the time, it was the second largest city in America, and I couldn't find anybody. Absolutely couldn't find anybody. And I ended up going up to the University of Wisconsin at Madison, which is where there was a Geshe Sopa, not Lama Zopa. Lama Zopa, another different person, very well respected. But Geshe Sopa was a Loraba Geshe. And we talked about that before. He was one of 5 people in the world that had been fully trained in Tibet and had gotten the highest standing. He'd won the national debate his graduating year. And he was the Tibetan man who had come over to America, and he taught the first group of PhD students. at the and it came out of the University of Wisconsin, Madison, in the 1970s. And so then my professor, I'd actually been introduced to Buddhism at the University of Virginia, and my professor there, Professor Hopkins, had studied with Geshe Sopan. So I figured, well, okay, good place to start. And so I actually thought I would go up there and get a PhD, and study, because that's what I knew of. That's what I knew of training, right? Academic training, get a PhD. And I went up there, and he surprised me, because I mean, it took quite a while to find him. Took quite a while to figure it out. Drove up there, and he didn't tell me to study with him. He told me to go find Roach. I thought they were kidding. Like, nobody's named a Roach. And
because the connotation, people don't know in other languages what it
yeah,
means.
a roach is a bug, right? I mean, it's like a horrible bug, right? It's not a butterfly bug. And so,
Cockroach.
yeah, cockroach, right? Cockroach. It's like, go find cockroach. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then it took me another year of searching, because this was before the internet, before I could find Roach. And he was in a 3-year retreat. But anyway, I feel very fortunate that I found him, because he does have the 10 qualities. And
we'll be talking about.
And that we're going to talk about the 10 qualities. And it's very important, right? Because you're doing something that's, it's difficult, right? You're trying to reach enlightenment. And you need to have an instructor. If you were to try and build a house by yourself for the first time, relatively simple, right? Wood, nails, wires, plumbing. If you tried to build a house without having anybody ever taught you, even if you had the books, you would make all kinds of mistakes. And it'd be a heck of a lot easier to do if you had a teacher. Same thing with this. Even if you got the books, you need a teacher. You need somebody who understands these issues, understands the material. And so the Gelukpas, being Gelukpas, gave us a list of 10 different items that you can expect, that ideally you will have in a teacher.
And Gelukpa is the word to name the lineage that was started by Jetsun Kappa.
Yeah. There's, and you'll hear the names over again. There were 4 different branches of Tibetan Buddhism, of which the Gelukpa lineage is the one that we're particularly coming out of. And so
share slides. We forgot about slides. That's beautiful.
Okay, so Dulwa, they should be a person who controls themselves well. Basically, do you want to talk about Dulwa? Do you want me to talk?
As you want.
You talk about Dulwa.
Okay. Okay, I will talk about Dulwa. And by the way, for participants online, you can make us the picture bigger or smaller. It's all in your, you can do it on your Zoom. So Dulwa is a very interesting word, actually. I am excited when I can find some, understanding because of the word, and it's an unusual word, because Dulwa means it is related to actually training of horses, and Dulwa is a past tense that you use when you say like you tamed a horse, like put under control, right? Or in Sanskrit it is Vinaya, and the word has the same connotation. Like it is actually weird, right? tamed. First quality of a teacher should be tamed. And the meaning is that tamed means he went through 3 trainings, and these 3 trainings correspond to first 3 qualities of the teacher that we will be explaining what they are. And the very first one is he knows morality, ethics. He respects ethics. Basically, 10 good deeds, like briefly respect life, respect other people possessions, respect other people relationship, no lying, do not split people up, do not use harsh speech, speak gently, softly. Then the 8 is idle talk, meaning no meaningless talks. Then be happy when another person gets what they want instead of being jealous, and be compassionate when something bad happens to other people instead of being happy that something bad happened to them. And the 10th is a correct worldview. Understand that my world is coming from my previous actions, thoughts, and words. So, and Dulva means that a teacher that we are looking at should know about ethics and respect ethics. And they say that a teacher is meant to tame other people. Like, how on the earth you can tame other people if you cannot tame yourself, right? So this is the quality number 1, ethical behavior.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because all of your actions, everything you say, everything you think, everything you do, it's producing a result. And the result's going to be similar to the original action. And so if they aren't
trained in ethics,
yeah, if they, and all of these ethics, they're just don't hurt other people and do help them. You know, that's it. And then and then the descriptions of how to do that are very sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Dulwa.
Mm-hmm.
For the second one, Shiwa, they described this as in the class as mindfulness, which I thought was interesting because 30 years later, that's now become well, I guess it took about 20 years later, that became a very a trendy term. At the time, it was not trendy at all. What happens is people are meditating, and we'll talk more about that. As people are meditating and as they go up the levels of meditation, their ability to concentrate and focus gets dramatically better. And at a certain point, you start carrying that ability to focus off the cushion. It's not just the time when you're meditating, it's the time when you get up off and you're walking around. And you have, the text described it specifically as recollection and awareness. You're aware of what you're doing. And if you deviate from something, if you have a bit of anger, if you have a bit of jealousy, you recall quickly that you don't want to have that it's not producing anything positive. And so you're mindful, you're aware of what you're doing as you go throughout the day. And again, it's a product that you see in advanced meditators. It's people carry it with them up off the cushion. Their mind has the ability to focus on things much better. They're
like we were talking with Bill, and we were trying to find some moment when we have seen McMichael to get angry, and we couldn't.
Yeah, that's where it was really helpful, frankly. The years I spent working for him, and you see
day-to-day
life, right? Like personal life, cooking, eating, his relationship with the people around him. And he'd be in difficult situations. I mean, really difficult at times. I never saw him get angry at all, ever. Like not even a hint of it, right? It was pretty extraordinary. And you know, and Ken Rinpoche also, and Ken Rinpoche was just the classic monk. He had been there, I think he got there in 1978. And so he'd been there 23 years living as a monk in Howell, New Jersey by the time I met him. And he had about 200 students. I never heard any rumors of him ever behaving in any way unethically. Never heard him. It really was the model of you know.
Oh, I heard some complaints.
Oh, would you? Well, he could be grumpy.
Because I wanted to specifically discuss this question. Some people are coming and saying like, what about these tough lamas of the past, you know, like a well-known story about Naropa having issues with his teacher, like really his teacher from the capital T. And Milarepa also had issues like their teachers, like when you read the stories, it looks like they were really torturing them. So how about these guys? Or Geshe Michael saying that Ken Rinpoche was not happy with him many times, like he would be grumpy at him.
Yeah.
And I remember that Geshe Michael said once, you know, relax about it. Like tough teachers, they are for tough students. You just find a nice one, you know, like who evidently went through these 3 trainings and they can control themselves, you know. They are aware, mindful, nice, you know.
Yeah, you'll see in the list of 10 qualities, being easy on their students isn't one of them.
Actually, there is a quality.
Kind and easy are 2 different things.
Okay.
All right.
Next quality.
Okay. So they're ethical and they're aware as they go about their day. Dolwa and Shiwa. The third one is high peace. So this near Shiwa. And hopefully your teacher has reached shamatha. This is a level of meditation where you can focus without distraction, without agitation, without dullness. And again, there'll be a whole course on this later. But the ability to meditate is something that is still largely undiscovered in the West, and it will be because it's powerful. You can train. Everybody has the ability to train their mind to focus and to think more clearly than what you may think is possible. And it lets you analyze things like emptiness, analyze things like, you know, why things are happening in your world. In fact, for whatever you wanted to do, there will come a day when if you want to have a job that involves some kind of intellectual ability, you'll have to meditate the same way that an athlete has to work out now. You know, like you're not going to be able to just go run a marathon without training and expect to win it. And in the future, you won't be able to have a job that requires a high level of intellectual capability unless you're meditating, because it's training for the mind. And so your teacher should ideally have high levels of meditation, and people have it. It's a necessary prerequisite to have shamatha before you can have the direct perception of emptiness. You can't do it. You can't see emptiness directly because you're not seeing emptiness with your eyes, right? You can have an intellectual understanding of it beforehand. I'm going to breathe now so the translators can catch up.
Otherwise, I will have to use something to poke you, then they have 1 second.
And so when you have the direct perception of emptiness, it's in a state of meditation that you're doing it. You're not seeing it with your eyes. It's called yogic direct perception. And you need to be able to reach shamatha to do that. But even before you've had the direct perception of emptiness, you can get shamatha. And I've known people who've done it in the outside world, holding regular jobs. It's not easy to do, but you can do it. And your mind works a heck of a lot better, dramatically better, when you can do that. And so, this one, Mir Shiva,
it's about concentration.
Yeah, is about concentration, and they should be using that to analyze emptiness. So this one's at this level, you'll see we're going to come to something similar in a bit, and we'll talk about it. But here, the Lama should have shamatha and be using that at least at a very high intellectual level to understand emptiness.
Mm-hmm. And when we may say time to time Lama because we have a habit, but actually we talk about a teacher.
Yeah, teacher. Yeah, just teacher. Whoever's teaching you this stuff.
Yeah. So basically, they need to understand emptiness and have good concentration.
Yeah.
So I just want to summarize that we just talked about 3 trainings. It is very famous. You will hear it in other courses, like he had 3 trainings, and these are 3 trainings. Dulva, Shiva, Nir Shiva. Ethics, morality, control himself, and can be really focused and understand emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Trained in wisdom. 4?
And I can tell you flat out, easily, no doubt about it, Geshe Michael and Ken Rinpoche had these qualities. They had all 10. And there's a weight, like when you get around somebody who's actually done this, as opposed to somebody who has just read books, there's a weight to them. There's an intelligence, there's an understanding. You can feel it when they're talking, when you're interacting with them. It's obvious, right? And particularly if you studied a bit and you know what you should be looking for, and you can see it in them. And there's other things, they're powerful. They were both very Ken Rinpoche's past, but they're very powerful people. Anyway, spiritual qualities, so the 4th one, Yunten Lakpa. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, okay, I can talk. Here, it is very important to distinguish between 2 things. Tokpe Dharma and Lunpe Dharma. It is in Tibetan, but what it means actually that the teaching exists in 2 forms, in form of realizations. So somebody applied it and got a result, and in form of teachings like books, recordings, etc. So, and then next qualities, they are talking about it like, I remember I was playing tennis when I was like 8 or 9, and my trainer, interesting, I think Geshe Michael also talks about something, tennis or something. And my trainer would tell me that I should play only with players who are playing better than me, that I shouldn't play with younger children, otherwise I will degrade, like I will not make any progress. And so in these qualities, and by the way, I'm not sure we mentioned that it is coming from Sutra Alankara, these 10 qualities. They talk, and there are several sources, but the 10 qualities are the same. They can be in slightly different order. And Jetsun Kappa, he says that you should study only with a teacher who is higher than you in knowledge. And one is he should have better realizations, like spiritual qualities of your teacher should exceed. If you do not find the teacher exceeding you in qualities, then at the very least, you will not make any progress, and you will get frustrated, you will get disappointed, and then you will just leave, and it would be a disaster, right? And this is what means Yonten Hlakpa. Yonten is in ancient Tibetan, now it's something else, but in ancient Tibetan, it meant qualities. So exceeding qualities.
Which is interesting, right? Because for Ken Rinpoche, talk about exceeding qualities. He was one of the 5 Larampa Geshes in the world at the time, right? One of the 5 most highly regarded scholars in the world who were trained originally in Tibet. Geshe Michael, the first Geshe, and
the best translator in the world.
Of historical importance, right? I mean, 30,000 pages of translations and a knowledge of Tibetan and Sanskrit that I don't think there's anybody else like him in the world, frankly.
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you have doubts about like these teachings, come to listen to Shuan Centaur classes that are happening US time Monday evening and Saturday morning, and rebroadcasted in Europe on Tuesday evening. So you will see like his ability to understand the text, like they would read translators the text to you, and like zero idea what it means, and then he explains, he uses his knowledge, like where the Tibetan words comes from, where Sanskrit words, like old Sanskrit, new Sanskrit, like newer, I mean. Like it is just unbelievable. And after all, it starts to make sense, and you understand how you can use it in your life. And all these 18 ACI courses were designed by Geshe Michael. And based on these courses, many people teaches something applicable, like we teach other courses that are based on this knowledge. So,
and if you take thinking of translations, if you take something that Geshe Michael's translated and compare it to the works that are being produced by PhD people, the academics, it's really obvious. You probably heard people say, do you understand the material well enough to explain it simply? And that's Geshe Michael. He understands it well enough to actually be able to explain it. The translations, you can go through line by line, word for word, and see, okay, the difference is obvious. Anyway, yeah. So exceeding the students.
He, as our teacher, is definitely exceeding our quality.
Yeah. And not just academic too. Okay, so Sun Chi, what are we on? This is number 5. willing to make great efforts or take great joy in helping their students. Oh my gosh.
Why are you laughing?
Like it's not even make great efforts, right? I mean, both.
Oh, Geshe Michael.
It's an entire life dedicated.
Everything.
I mean, he only goes to sleep so that he can rest, so he can teach better the next day. And Ken Rinpoche also, right? I mean, he was a monk, a Larampa Geshe, and he had to leave Tibet. The story of how he left Tibet, went to India, the difficulties he underwent, stayed there, was still dedicated to this wisdom, and then was asked to come to the United States totally alone. I mean, imagine like the reverse situation, right? Like being, asked to go someplace where you didn't speak the language, where you didn't know anybody, completely foreign culture, and now you're going to teach. And I guess there were some Mongolians that were there. It wasn't completely alone, but he basically had no peers, right? And a whole life dedicated to teaching. And so
it is not enough to work a lot. Very important, because Tsunche, great effort. In original scriptures, they explain that it does not mean that you will be exhausted because you are working hard. It means that you are happy of the efforts you have done. And sometimes it is better to do less according to our capacities, but to be more happy about what we are doing. And same, you will see teachers like Geshe Michael, like they work a lot, but they're so happy. They are exhausted and happy.
Well, and it's also interesting too, because like when time would come to have dinner, and so like the business people that I saw, like the time comes to have dinner, like, oh God, the day was horrible. I need 2 martinis. Geez, this was, it's just miserable, and 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 they're all stressed out. Like Geshe, like he's working, the world's blowing up, because his students have problems, and always. Time comes to have dinner, he's relaxed, like totally at peace with himself, totally comfortable with where he is, and he really was able to enjoy a meal and enjoy
not bringing his difficult stories to the table.
I don't know that yeah. So great effort doesn't mean great stress, right? Americans in particular confuse, I'm busy, right? Like, I'm busy. You never hear Geshe Michael say, oh, I'm busy,
Oh, I do.
Well, no, he says I guess lately he says I don't have time to waste. But it's definitely a different emphasis, right?
Yeah. Okay. Next one. Great efforts. Then we are back to this 2 things. Remember, I told Tokpe Dharma and Lunpe Dharma. Tokpe Dharma, it means realizations, and Lunke Dharma, it's here, like scriptures, right?
We pretty much covered, the rich in scriptural knowledge. I mean, clearly, it's not possible to find anybody more rich in scripture than what both those 2 teachers were.
It means they know these books, they know their stuff better. Like this lady on the slide, I loved, by the way, the slides. Our volunteers were helping with the slides, and I think they're very appropriate. Like, she knows her stuff, by heart. She doesn't have to like look in the dictionaries. Maybe sometimes she needs something really complicated, but mainly she had her stuff with her, right? So deep knowledge of these books.
Yeah. In the books, we talked about it earlier, they can get to be quite difficult at the higher levels. I mean, I've seen things that, yeah, extremely difficult.
And it also goes in stages. I mean, if you will go to these classes that we are passionate about with Bill, Schwann Centaur classes now, then maybe you will have an impression like the last class that we have listened, like, oh, not much. I can understand not much from this class, and this is temporary, because with the time you understand more and more, because your mental seeds are growing and your capacity will be increasing dramatically.
And, thinking of rich in scriptural knowledge, Ina and I were talking about this a few days ago. Originally, with the 18 ACI courses, I was a bit disappointed that they weren't books. I wanted to read a book. I wanted to read the Abhidharma Kosha and then learn the book. And McMichael has taken, pieces of books and put them together in its own course. And he did that 30 years ago. He's been studied a lot since, but 30 years ago, he had the knowledge to put this together. And after having gone through it and lived with it for a couple decades myself, I'm appreciating just how brilliant it was for him to take. If you've seen pictures of the libraries in Tibet, I mean, they have big rooms and the walls are just filled with books. Woodblock prints, and to take that body of knowledge and be able to pull this course together, it's extraordinary, and it's brilliant. And then for the people who come in later generations to teach, it's there, right? It's still there to guide us. It's a masterwork.
Yeah, and especially, these courses for me were very similar to my medical university, because when you study, you will see course 1 is actually a review of all the 18 courses. Then course 2, something else. It will be like refuge. What is refuge? Strange word. Nobody uses. Then meditation, then logic, then karma and how we create the world, then emptiness, then bodhisattva vows, etc. Like everything is so different. And it was the same at medical school, like biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, pathological anatomy, then neurology, etc. And all of these pieces. And after 6-7 years of studies, it comes all together, and you start to see the human body, the human organism, as a 3D model where you know what can happen and how. And it feels the same with these courses, like you pick these different pieces and then it all comes into one picture and you see it as something really beautiful. You think, wow, no human being could really design it. It is impossible. It is non-human.
Well, yeah, it's extraordinary. For people who want the books, how many books have they actually fully translated and are published now? Like 7 or 8 of them?
Yeah, I think about 10 in English, and
there's at least 7. So it took him 30 years to put together students and to get to the point in his career where he was going to translate the whole books instead of producing, frankly, a condensed version for us.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, rich in scripture, yeah.
And you can get also books if you want.
Yeah, please do go buy them. They're yeah. So okay.
Next, the one that you like the most.
Yeah, Deni Rabtok. They should have a deep realization of suchness. Okay, so this one, ideally, they should have the direct perception of emptiness. And I remember, again, early on, I'd been introduced to the concept of the direct perception of emptiness when I was at the University of Virginia. They talked about it. Professor Hopkins had talked about it. And it seemed pretty mystical, pretty magical, and it is. And I remember when I went up to go talk to Geshe Sopa at the University of Wisconsin, and then I had so many questions. But you read these things, you're like, is it really possible? Can people really do this? And either so either people are doing it or somebody's written one heck of a fantasy novel, right? And I remember asking Geshe Sopa's attendant, Yangtze Rinpoche, can people really do this? And he looked at me, he looked at me, yeah, people can really do it. And we can say, Geshe has publicly said that he's done this. Most people will, I'm very distrustful of people who've said that they've had the direct perception of emptiness. Particularly after people have been around, I've seen people who've claimed to have had the direct perception of emptiness. It's a major event, right? And we'll talk more about this later, but it's a major event. It's not, and there's a whole.
It is a non-returning point on this path.
You're guaranteed to reach enlightenment within a certain amount of, relatively short amount of time after that.
7 to 16?
7 to 21, depending, 1 year, one lifetime, depending, it depends. And so I've seen people who claim to have had the direct perception of emptiness. And how do you tell, right? It's in somebody's head. It's a mental realization that they've had. And you can tell by their behavior. If somebody has had the direct perception of emptiness, they won't have any doubts about cause and effect. They won't have any doubts that things are empty.
And by the way, I should warn you that they will not tell you.
Yeah, and you'll see that they'll be behaving like Geshe Michael behaves, right? They'll be extremely ethical. They will be completely devoted, obsessed with getting this wisdom out because they know it's the only thing that's going to help people, right? And so you look at their behavior.
I want to go back to my point that
Okay.
they will not tell you, because I remember it was a big deal for me. I was like, I was thinking, wow, like you have 10 qualities. Out of 10, basically 2 qualities are about seeing emptiness directly. And now you tell us that they won't tell about it, like how to check it, right? So this is why it is important, because Geshe Michael was criticized a lot because he publicly announced that he did it. Usually people do not tell because they know there will be criticism, and people will hurt themselves with this criticism because once somebody has perceived emptiness directly, they become kind of another level being, and anything you can do to them becomes much more powerful. And you can hurt better if you will criticize yourself, if you will criticize these beings.
It's also useless for people generally to talk about whatever their mental realizations are, because people are going to see what they're going to see, right?
But there was a need for McMichael to announce it publicly. It's not that he broke something.
No, he was, when he announced that, what would it have been, like more than 20 years ago? I mean, just to be able to say, yeah, it's possible, was a big deal, right? That it's not just something locked away in some obscure book and a rumor of it, that, people, that it's a legitimate goal for all of us, right?
Because at this point, people were thinking, oh, it's just some kind of strange stuff in old books. Nobody can do it,
Yeah. And so, and he took a lot of, he got a lot of criticism for stating it, and he faced it boldly and went forward, and, he's really lived the path. So there's no doubt in my mind that he's done it. And you guys, you'll have to investigate for yourself and decide for yourself. But ideally, your teachers had the direct perception of emptiness.
But because we are living in a
degenerate
era, Judson Kappa says it's okay if they have only very good intellectual understanding of emptiness.
Yeah. So higher than the one we talked about before. Ideally, the direct perception of emptiness. It's possible. It's not easy to do. So he's letting people off the hook here. Maki Den, they should be a master instructor. Do you want to talk about this? All the different ways Geshe-la taught?
You talk about it.
They should be good at teaching, right? Because that's the way you can help people. We're trying to get out of suffering, and at the root of all of our suffering is ignorance. And this ignorance creates our mental afflictions, which creates our problems. And so you have to be able to explain to people in the way that's best for them what's happening in their world. And they need to be good at teaching, because that's the highest way you can help somebody. You can give somebody a sandwich, they eat for a day, they'll be hungry tomorrow. If you want to really get them out of suffering altogether, they got to get enlightened. And, that's going to take some study, and it's got to take some motivation, right, to help them understand why they want to be that way. And Geshe-la, Ken Rinpoche did what he did, right? You couldn't find Ken Rinpoche. He didn't advertise. There was no internet then, not that anybody used outside of academic circles. And the only way you got to Ken Rinpoche was by word of mouth. And he taught what he did very well to the 200 or so people that had the chance to study with him. And particularly the handful of students that, like Geshe-la, who really learned. And so he was a master instructor in the Tibetan way, in the traditional way. And then Geshe-la, now being a Westerner, oh my gosh, if you're a businessman, he will teach like he's a businessman. He will put on a suit. If you're a yoga practitioner, he will put on his Lululemon yoga clothes and go to the studio and teach you the Yoga Sutras in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And he will travel to New York and LA, where the yoga studios are. If you're a crazy Buddhist, he will go sit in the desert and teach you.
Yeah, like Bill and I, we met McMichael in totally different environments.
Yeah.
Like he wanted traditional teachings,
Yeah.
and he got these traditional teachings sitting in a tent in, oh my God, 40-something degree desert in Arizona, like probably 20 miles to a living being, the closest living being.
I didn't really want the desert. That's the way it came. I wanted a monk. It just happened to be the monk was in the desert.
Yeah, the desert was for free together with the monk.
Yeah, it came as a package.
And yeah, so for him, it was like all suffering, no water, no food in the desert, like closest store, I don't know, 15 miles or something.
Yeah,
In Bowie,
yeah.
dying town in Arizona. And I met McMichael in the center of Kiev in a 5-star hotel.
Mhm.
Dressed as a business executive, teaching in the setting that I was used to, because I was working in a big American company. And if my company would choose a hotel to do a training for us, for the staff, they would choose the same exact hotel, you know. So we found him in the exact environment that was suitable for us.
Yeah, he taught whatever people needs. He had the knowledge of the teachings and adapted them to what they needed to hear. I mean, genuine. Both were master teachers in their own way for their own audience. It was really. Yeah, he's a chameleon. I mean, he will
Chameleon.
chameleon, yeah, and very, very good at teaching. Very, very good at teaching. Really, yeah. Try reading some other books on emptiness and see where you get.
Not much.
Not much. Well,
especially translated.
Very good at producing Dharma monsters.
Great.
Okay, master instructor. Image of love. One of the more Sewe Dakni, one of the more useful definitions I've ever heard in my life is simply that love is the desire to see somebody else be happy, right? We have a lot of wrong ideas about what love is, but that's true love, the desire to see somebody else be happy. Yeah, I can tell you, for Geshe-la, I mean, he was working in the 90s, getting rich as a diamond executive. I mean, he didn't need students. You know, he could have quietly, you know, done whatever he wanted to
do endless retreats to the end of his life.
Yeah, he could have literally done whatever he wanted to do, and he does
translate.
And he devoted himself to teaching because he genuinely, because that was the highest way to show his love for people, to help them.
McMichael wrote a book with one Russian, actually he's a Muslim guy, Mirza Karim Narbekov, teacher. They wrote a book, 10 questions, 1 and 10 questions, like 10 points, you know, for life, another one. And I happened to translate one of the chapters, chapter 7, about meditation, big mistakes in our life, what we do not do that probably it would be a good idea to do. And it was about meditation. And his co-author gave an interview once, and I remembered he was describing like what are students for a teacher, and I was thinking, oh my God, that's completely about Geshe-Michael. And he said that people do not realize when somebody takes students, it's like adopting a baby, not even a child, but a baby. like an infant, a newborn child, with all the problems that come with the child.
Well,
and all the potential, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about us, and I don't know. Certainly for Geshe, Michael, and me, it was the case. You know, I had so much to learn, honestly.
Yeah, and with for Geshe, Michael, and me also.
And you'd see him, you know, like, did Geshe Michael need students? No, he didn't need students. Students would have a problem. Like he had no money, right? He did a 3-year retreat. He got out, he had no money.
30,000 of debt, he said.
Yeah, he would write a book, and then a royalty check would come in, and I knew the people who were doing his checking accounts for him at this point, and like he'd get like $10,000 in and give it away right away, or you know, people would. He was always paying for his students, right? I mean, it was.
We went to see Geshe Michael.
And when I say win it right
year.
away, he'd get 10,000 and it would go to charity. Like he would give it away to help somebody else.
Yeah, not just give it away, but mindfully, intelligently give away.
Yeah.
Like reinvest these good seeds that ripened. Yeah, and it is still the case. I mean, we went to see Geshe Michael last year, and oh my God, it was a bodhisattva's fight who will pay for the dinner.
Yeah.
And he succeeded to convince the waiter before Geshe Michael told him.
I had to get up. I had to pretend I was going to the bathroom in the middle of dinner because I knew if I waited to the end of the meal, he'd beat me to it. And it was an expensive dinner. And I was like, well, the only way I'm going to get to pay for dinner is if I
be faster.
Well, is if I get up and go find the waiter in the kitchen and pay for it now.
And but Geshe Michael repaid because this time we went to see him and his wife Veronica, and he asked us to stay for a couple more days, and he gave away his booked hotel room in the best hotel in Sedona. I mean. And the best hotel in Sedona in non-season was $500 a night.
Yeah. So we show up and he gave us $1,000 worth of hotel room.
Yeah, because it was cheap. $500 was cheap because it was not the hot season.
Yeah. So, which is another story. But love, the desire to see other people be happy.
I mean, if you think that your teacher wants something from you like money or anything else, then probably it's not a great teacher.
No.
They should be, their only motivation to teach should be love. This is the meaning of this this point, this quality. The last one.
Beyond becoming discouraged. How many times, I don't know if people have, I don't know if everybody here has seen it yet, has seen Geshe Michael do the pen story.
Some of them maybe they have seen.
I don't think anybody can count the number of times he's told the same story to illustrate emptiness about the pen and the chew toy.
Yeah, I think personally I have seen probably, I don't know, between 30 and 50, I would say.
I couldn't.
Just personally.
I couldn't guess. I mean, certainly he's told what's got to be mind-numbingly simple to him, just unbelievably simple to him. Thousands of times. And I've never once seen him get frustrated, exasperated, bored.
Tired of stupid students.
I just go watch the video. Just go watch the video. I'm moving on to something else. And Ken Rinpoche, never got discouraged either, honestly. I mean, you know, 78, it had to be 26 years talking to English speaking students not from his culture. Had to be. Geshe tells a story once of when another Geshe, another Tibetan Geshe, came to talk to Ken Rinpoche. And Ken Rinpoche and this other Tibetan Geshe stayed up all night long talking. And he realized at that point that Ken Rinpoche was alone. He didn't have a peer. He didn't have somebody from his culture. He didn't have somebody who had common experiences, and never stopped him. Never got discouraged. Was always there for every event. Was always there teaching. Very consistent. Really
helping.
Yeah. So
his Ken Rinpoche schedule was like Geshe Michael's schedule. Like if you want to have a talk with him, 15 minutes, like probably in half a year.
Yeah. If you could get but
yeah, if you ask 3 times.
Yes, 3 times. Yeah, that's a different story. We've been very blessed. This lineage is authentic. It's, if there was something better in the world, not only would I be there, I would be recommending that you be there. If you find something better, let us know, and we'll tell you why it isn't.
And I think something important about this class is that try do your best to find somebody who will be qualified, as a teacher, because every point here is important. And there are people like Bill has seen both his teachers as completely qualified teachers. I have, when I heard this list, like I was thinking, wow, I know so many people who qualify, like some people, they say, oh, just half of the list, or it is important to remember where the teacher comes from. And if you do not see a teacher who qualifies for you, then you can do something to improve your mental seeds to see a correct teacher, right?
Yeah, that's a different story.
Which is a different story. Anything you want to add before we end the class?
That's a lot for today.
Yeah, I think it's not a long class. It's only 1 hour class. But I was listening to this class, I remember, like probably 20 plus times, because I was thinking, wow, it is so important. I really need to be careful to find my teacher, because they say that it is more important than to get married,
Yeah, no, it's the wrong spiritual teacher. You'd be better off, like, the wrong spiritual teacher, like somebody physically, they can kill you once in this lifetime. Wrong spiritual teacher can send you off in the wrong direction for thousands of years. It's worse to run into wrong spiritual teachings than almost anything else that can happen to you in this lifetime. So
yeah. I remember Geshe Michael talking that if somebody teaches you how to smoke or use drugs or drink alcohol, yeah, it's a bad habit, but it will last only for this lifetime. Wrong spiritual teacher is worse.
Yeah. So, and everybody has their own responsibility to investigate, right? You have to investigate, and don't be in a hurry. It takes time.
Okay.
Years, many years.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow the class will be because of the time zones, etc. I feel it is important to tell you when it will be tomorrow. It will be 5 p.m. Kiev time, which is 6 p.m. Moscow time, 4 p.m. European time, 9 a.m. Chicago time, the first class, and the second class will be exactly in 3 hours after the first one. And classes will not be 2 hours each. This is just enough time not to be in a hurry, to have space. Thank you very much, translators, volunteers, participants. Please stay with us.
Thank you
And we will see what will happen in the future with this group.
And I've got to go to work tomorrow. I've got to fly to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and spend a day at the beach.
Very hard work.
But I'll be back next weekend.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Right.